We live in a world of rapidly developing technology and changing consumer behavior. Some companies can get left behind, while others achieve spectacular growth. So what does it take to succeed in business today? We've come to Monaco to talk to some of the world's top entrepreneurs as they gather to exchange ideas and celebrate each other's success. Today I meet the entrepreneurs who, as a brother and sister team, have taken their family's drug business and turned it into a worldwide industry leader. Goa in Western India, the site of a drug manufacturing plant that's helping to make Lupin a serious player in the international pharmaceutical industry. The company was started by Vinita Gupta in 1968. It's now run by two of his 5 children, Vinita and Nilesh, who are Chief Executive and Managing Director. The company's grown fast over the last 10 years, and its revenue was more than $2.1 billion in the year to April 2016. It employs more than 16,000 people. Lupin is a world leader in anti-TB drugs and has now become a major force in generic pharmaceuticals. It's in the top 10 suppliers internationally. It's also made major inroads into the US market, but it hasn't all been plain sailing. In 2009, Lupin received a warning from American regulators about standards at one of its facilities, and rapid action was needed to reassure customers and ensure there was no lasting damage to its business.
Vinita, Nilesh Gupta, thank you very much for joining us here in sunny Monaco. So Lupin is your family business, and now you're a brother and sister team at the top of it. Did you always take it as a given that you were going to get involved?
No, not really. I mean, it was, we got involved, I got involved very early in the business, but I used to be an artist as a kid. So I explored architecture. My dad suggested, wouldn't you want to try to explore something that fits your skills? And I just loved the way he had built the business with a lot of passion, a lot of dedication, great intent of building an organization that really makes a difference, and was hooked to it early and wanted to get in. In one of the first meetings I went with my dad, I was 14 years old, and he was negotiating a major transaction. And he said that if you want to come and learn, you know, you're welcome to join me. And I loved that start and got hooked to the business very early.
Was it the same for you, Nilesh?
So I knew I wanted to join the company right from the start. But when I did my MBA, Vinita was actually responsible for getting me back to Lupin in India and started there. And I'm really glad that I came back to Lupin at that time. I think that was a pivotal juncture for the company.
When you headed off at age 20 to Kellogg School of Management in the United States, you needed special permission, isn't that right, to be accepted because you were so young? What was that like, heading off to a strange country at that stage in your life?
It was quite a game changer for me. It was a huge learning experience. It was a challenge to get into the school because most of the students at business school had 5 years of work experience before they got in. And the admissions committee said, well, you just have 1 on paper. And I told them my story of when I got started at 14, like I just mentioned. And then the time that I had spent at Lupin after my pharmacy degree, I mean, getting experience in multiple different functions, really said the 1 year at Lupin is worth 10 years. So it was a wonderful experience to be able to be in a country which is the largest market for our industry. Today it's the largest market for Lupin. It was a great experience, to great exposure to the world, and you know, met a lot of great entrepreneurs when I went to school, and wonderful professors who really shaped the way I thought.
So these days you're the chief executive, you're the managing director. Cast your mind back to the generation which we've now left behind. Was there ever a question that it seemed, in some cultures, might seem more natural for a boy to take the top job?
Not in Lupin. It would have been Vinita only. Yeah. So we're 5 siblings, 4 sisters and me, and my dad comes from a very clear background that he would never differentiate. In fact, I think I was being differentiated against. But no, not for a heartbeat would that ever have been the thought.
The other, the way I thought about it growing up, he always treated me like a son. You know, I never felt any difference. Usually women in India, and especially the community that we come from, usually are pressured to get married early and have families, raise families. And I was always pressured for building the business and generating profit.
But that makes you particularly unique then within India, doesn't it?
That is true. I was very fortunate, really blessed to have that environment and to have a mentor like my dad who gave me that opportunity.
In many parts of the world right now, there's a debate going on about why women aren't getting through to the top levels in companies, aren't getting into the boardroom in the same way that men are. Is that debate happening in India right now, and are you proud to be a role model for women in business?
So that conversation is happening on a lot of boards, you know, gender equity and gender balance on the board as well as corporations. But we are very pleased that on the Lupin board we already have two women, you know, and in our leadership team, which is a big part of our success, we have many very successful, very powerful women.
They've also made it mandatory in India now to have a certain percent of the board members, especially the independent board members, being women. So I think as a country they're trying to address it as well, but there's obviously a lot of steps to that.
Take us back to the beginning. When your dad set up the business, and he set it up with a kind of a lofty set of guiding principles, I mean, what do you remember about its formative years?
So I was born the year he set up the business. So I was just born at that point in time. And the guiding principles, as we learned about it, knowing the business, was very much about making a difference, giving back to society. He wanted to get into a market that was of high national need, high national priority. I mean, so he got into tuberculosis, which was a big problem in India, continues to be, but was a bigger problem in that point in time. And there was no company that was truly dedicated for the cause of tuberculosis. So he decided to build the capabilities, you know, from a technology perspective, from a commercial perspective, and very rapidly became a major force in the tuberculosis market.
What do you think it was about your dad, Deshbandhu Gupta, that made him into this kind of this man who was more interested in these principles rather than just purely driven by profit?
So I think he's a very unique individual, of course. He actually started as the son of a school teacher in a village, fought with his dad to go into the sciences rather than agriculture, obviously went on to qualify, taught for some time, worked, and then decided to set up his own. You know, you don't see those kind of people anymore, right? He started with $250 at that time, money that was loaned by my mom to start the business, and obviously he took it there. I think you know, it's captured in the name as well. You know, Deshbandhu means friend of the country. Started with a focus on areas of national importance. So tuberculosis was a big problem in India. It still is, and Lupin focused on TB medicines to start with. Came to a point where he was known as the TB king of the world, right? And in India we have close to 50% of the market, about 30+% of the market globally, and so I think his drivers have always been looking for that unmet need, looking for that high national importance, and he's always felt that the numbers would follow, right? I think he's never shied away from setting high goals as well. So when everybody was talking 100 crores in India, he was talking 1,000 crores. When everybody started talking 1,000 crores, he was talking about $1 billion, and it's just been like that, right? So now we're talking $3.5, $5 billion as well, and I think he's the one who sets those overarching goals.
How were the numbers, as you put it, when you took over? What kind of shape was the business in?
It was a very small company at that point in time. It was, so we've been involved with the company for many, many years. Me for 27 years, Nilesh for 25 years. But we have, you know, taken over really as leadership, as CEO and managing director only in the last 3 years. But prior to that, we really drove the globalization plans of the organization. When we joined the company, The company was really a India-focused, India-oriented organization. Majority of the revenues, majority of the employee pool was in India. The international business was really a more B2B, supplying to emerging markets. But so when I joined the company, my dream was to really take the company global, in particular the US market, which is the largest market for our industry, and put together the blueprint, the strategy, and then worked with Nilesh and the team to really execute the strategy.
How involved is your dad still? And when you talk to him, does he kind of try and find out how you're continuing his principles in the modern day business?
So he's at work every day. So he's 78 now, but he's there for 5-6 hours a day. He's got a lot of other things going on as well. He has his exercise, he has yoga in the evening. He's very involved with the Hare Krishna movement in India, for example, with the meditation, Vipassana form of meditation as well. So he's got a lot of other interests. Today he focuses much more on the strategic direction of the company. He makes it a point to meet at least 2 or 3 people every day, so that he's talking to them about what's happening as well. For example, when we acquired Gavis, he was all over it. He wanted to be very sure. Is it going to deliver the numbers that we're talking about? Are we sure about this? Because it was a big acquisition. So I would say that he's involved selectively in stuff, but still involved and still very emotionally involved with the company, of course.
I'll just add to that, the principles that he had right in the beginning about making a difference, getting into areas where Lupin can make a difference while building value. It's important to him that we continue that. In terms of management philosophy, he always had the philosophy that Lupin should be a place where professionals feel like family and family work like professionals. And we have worked hard to get ourselves as well as the management team to that level. So it's a very close-knit leadership team in the organization that feels ownership, that completely believe in the vision, the plans, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, that we're working together with them to really take the organization to a different level.
When you think you need to make changes to the company, do you feel you need to consult with Dad, or do you feel any sense of guilt if you really change strategy?
Well, when you change strategy, I mean, a major direction, obviously, that there's a discussion. But we really, the strategic direction doesn't change that much. How do you execute the strategy is where you make changes. The culture of the organization that my father set right from the beginning was very entrepreneurial, very nimble, very agile. You adapt. Because there are a lot of changes in the environment, there are a lot of changes in the industry, and you always constantly have to adapt to determine what's the best way to grow the organization.
So do you think you haven't really changed what your dad set out, you've just grown it?
No, we did change. I would say that from the biggest change that we were responsible for was to take the organization from an Indian organization to a global organization. That was a major change for the organization. But that's a strategy that all of us were completely aligned on. It was a collective strategy that we came up with. As we executed the strategy, we had multiple different avenues that we could have gone. For example, in the US, we had determined that we wanted to go into the generic side of the business. But the first opportunity that I saw was to get into the brand side of the business. And I believed in it and, felt that not too many companies get that opportunity to get into the brand world. So early in the evolution, we ought to embrace it, seize it, and, make that the start of Lupin in the US. So it was a discussion at the board level. It was a discussion with my dad, and he agreed.
You had a particular challenge, though, in the US, didn't you, in 2009, when the FDA, which regulates drugs in the US, they had issues with one of your production facilities. How did you overcome that?
Sure. So we had a warning letter in one of our facilities in India, and we were very disappointed because we were very, very proud of the quality of our product, and clearly we were sleeping at the wheel. I think it was a big wake-up call for the organization. Vinita and I were intimately involved with turning that situation around. including just getting as into it as you can possibly imagine. I think when you're hit with a crisis like that, the only way you can do it is get right in front, understand the situation well, work with the right people, and then do the right thing. And I think we came out of that problem in record time, in less than 9 months, and that's kind of unheard of in today's day and time. But I think we did, because I think at the higher level we were there to do the right thing. We were ready to make the right commitments and deliver against the commitments. And as we did that, obviously the regulator worked along with us as well.
In what way do you say you were sleeping at the wheel? I mean, the regulator had problems with the standards in the manufacturing facilities, isn't that right? What was wrong?
Sure. So I think standards evolve over time, and I think what happened is, people think standards are stationary, and probably that's all that it was at that point. I just don't think we were current with where the FDA standing was at that time. The FDA themselves, the US FDA in particular, have gone through a major transition in the last 10 years. I think they were in their time wrapped on their knuckles for not being up to speed with what was happening globally as well. There were problems in China, which were highlighted at that point of time. And so obviously the FDA had moved along on certain standards that we had not, and that's what we needed to fix, not just in the one plant but network wide as well.
The US was particularly your baby, Vinita, because you were running the subsidiary there for a while. What was running through your mind during that time? Were you worried that all the progress you'd made in that market might be, turn back the clock on it?
Well, it was a very challenging time, because it was the first time we had been, we had a very successful start in the US, and this was a major hurdle, and all the customers were concerned about the product quality, but we were confident that the changes that we needed to make were related to really improving what we had. There was no product issue, there was no quality issue. So I got onto the phone with each and every of our major partner to give them an idea of what the challenge was, what the problem was, and what we were doing to fix it. Invited them to our facilities for them to come and see what we're doing. We did the same thing with the FDA. Both Nilesh and I went to DC in front of the FDA, sat down with them and told them that we acknowledged we had challenges, told them that we had come up with an enhancement plan and shared our enhancement plan with them, inviting them back to our site. So, when people know that right from the top there is a strong focus on quality, they were convinced that we were going to do what it takes to meet the FDA concerns.
Okay, let's focus on where you're going from here. Mm-hmm. You have a product mix right now of branded drugs and as well as generics. Generics was your focus. You've moved into branded. Why is that? Explain the business strategy there.
So the business today is 95% generics, so branded generics, and 5% branded. We are moving towards more of a branded business, more of a specialty business, while growing our strong generics business. The reason for that is, as an organization, we have ambitious plans. We want to take our company from the $2 billion level right now to $5 billion and beyond. And we believe generics can get us only so far. So we have to have multiple drivers of growth to be able to get to our goals. Also, from an evolution of the company standpoint, we would like to really build Lupin into a more innovative organization. Generics is it's a very solid place to start, and certainly you're bringing very valuable, affordable medicines to market. But the generic small molecule opportunities are going down over time. And the opportunities that will help us grow our business over the next 5 years, the next 10 years, are high barrier areas like biologics, like inhalation devices, like complex injectables, that require us to invest more into R&D, to take on more risk, clinical risk, and to build more in terms of commercial infrastructure to be able to commercialize these opportunities. So we are already, as a generic company, moving into the direction of these high barrier generics that brings us very close to the branded side of our industry.
It's an ongoing debate, isn't it, within the wider pharma industry. You talk about the risk of investing in R&D. You don't end up finding anything that's worthwhile. How do you see that debate evolving? How do you strike the right balance within a company between paying for research and making drugs affordable for those who need them?
So from the big pharma lens, I think they're already starting to evolve to that platform. So you see them in developing countries, giving up on patents, giving up for local licenses, for example, giving up on processes of manufacture. You see companies doing that in India as well. And then obviously you charge, what you feel is the right price for markets that can afford it. And I heard a very interesting line today. I think it was, if you don't make money, you can't innovate, right? So I think if you have the right lens, if you're making the money, if you're investing it back into the right kind of opportunities, that's a cycle that keeps giving.
Do you think it's a debate that has particular resonance in India, given that it still has a problem with extreme poverty that, say, for example, the United States doesn't quite have?
So price control is a big part of India. So for example, 24% of what we sell in India is actually regulated by government prices, and it basically is a market-driven model. So they would take the average of the market prices and bring everybody down to that level, and they do annual price cuts as well, and they're adding to that portfolio also. So pricing is quite in the forefront in India as a discussion, and prices are coming down.
We as an organization, coming from the generic side of the industry, are always very sensitive to bringing affordable medicines to market. So whether it's a generic or a brand, we are always very sensitive to price it at a level that's affordable for the market.
And the bigger part of India, India is all a private pay market, right? And I think the pharma industry has done a huge job of making pretty good quality products available at very affordable prices, right? You always hear of these stories people taking a bag full of medicines from India to wherever they're going back to, and I think that's because you get drugs at very affordable prices. So I think at that higher level in India, drugs are still extremely affordable, and that's because of the patent rules that we had. We've changed them now, but I think it's because of that legacy.
Looking back on all that both of you have achieved in running Lupin, you must be very proud of yourselves. 23% growth over the last 10 years. You are now one of the world's top drug makers.
We are very proud of what we and our team have accomplished.
But there's so much more we're going to do.
Yeah.
Where to from here?
Well, we have a significant plan for the next 5 years and beyond. I mentioned that strategically we really want to evolve the company into a more innovative organization from the generic roots, and while really holding on to our strong generic position. But today, if you look at our position out of India, we are number 3, third largest company out of India. We are the 6th largest by value amongst generic companies globally. We certainly want to be in the top 3 globally. We want to be the largest out of India. But more importantly, apart from the numbers, we want to be able to build a innovative business, bring value-added medicines to market that make a difference.
Now that China is no longer growing as it has been, there is a new focus on the potential of the Indian economy. But there is still a very big wealth divide in India, isn't there? Do you feel, as people who are in the most likely the top levels of wealth in India, a responsibility to do something for those who aren't so fortunate?
Oh, absolutely. I think, and that again is something that we've inherited from our father. He started, for example, Lupin's support program more than 25 years ago. It covers over 2 million villagers, focusing on really bottom of the pyramid kind of work. Another thing that we started just 2 years ago was a movement to eradicate tuberculosis from Mumbai altogether, right? And nobody's ever been able to do that at a scale like that. And we've had some great results to start with. So, yeah, I think you can't see all this and not give back.
And when you're so busy with projects like that, and also busy with the business of running a company, and a family company at that, do you find your personal life is very intertwined with your professional life, or do you still have time to kick back and relax?
You have to make time. I mean, when you are in a family business, and you love what you do, it fully consumes you. So you have to really find time to do other things. But dining table conversations are about our business. I remember a time when my mom had a rule. She said, no, for 1 week, let's stop talking about business on the dining table. It was a very quiet week for our family.
Was there nothing left to talk about?
There was nothing.
She gave up after that.
So what advice do you give to aspiring entrepreneurs?
So I would say follow your dreams. Find very early what you feel passionate about and then just follow it through.
I also think that you need to be very specific with your dreams. I think you need to be clear about what you want to do, and I think you need to sign up for some very serious hard work. It's a lot of grit and determination. It's not easy at all. You see so many people thinking that, oh yeah, it's rather easy, let's jump in and do this, and they're floundering after a year. So I think you need to sign up for the long term. You need to sign up for some serious hard work, and you really need to believe in what it is that you're pursuing.
Nilesh, Vinita Gupta, thank you very much for meeting me.
Thank you.